Okay. So the audio should be working now. Uh, Calgary, can you just let me know when I'm coming through? Let me know if I'm too loud. And then we'll continue. Or sorry. Yeah. All right. Cool. Um, Welcome everyone. Uh, I guess I lied to you because I said there'd be like 0% chance of going over to like 11. A bit higher percent chance. Um, yeah. So what's up? We're about to embark on really a fairly sizable adventure here. Today is the day that you become full on like back end developers, right? This is where you complete the stack. I think we had a lecture a little while ago where I suggested that like you might be tattooing the date on like one of your rib cages, or not. I don't know if you have multiple rib cages on your rib cage. Did I do that? Yeah. Did anybody get that tattoo? No. Yeah, today. Cool, cool. Because this is very much the live, laugh, love, like collarbone tattoo at this point. And then later on, honestly, probably the next time we have a lecture, it'll be like kind of the down the back tattoo. No, more like a stamp of honor, right? Like yeah. Um, so yeah, and then there will be the little teardrop tattoos, like little JavaScript code just going down. It'll be a couple like semicolons is what it'll be. Um, so today we're working with a thing called Mongode, MongoDB. We are embarking on a journey of data persistence. So let me make a new file here, call it notes.md, and we're going to say today is week 3, day 4, data persistence. Right. So as is kind of typical with the way I do these lectures, is we're just going to start off by like motivating the idea, right? And then we're going to dive into the actual tool. So we'll do a little bit of theory first. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and then we'll kind of see where that kind of gets us. I mean, first of all, how's everyone doing today? Pretty good? It is very nice. It's very nice. And I hope the weather's nice in Calgary. So today we're gonna go back to your favorite project, which was Tiny App, right? I don't know if you know this, but your final project is actually a re-implementation of Tiny App on the blockchain. No, that would be really mean. No, we're gonna look at Tiny App, kind of in a theoretical sense, because with Tiny App, there were a couple things that you could do. We're gonna explore the features, right? And we're gonna see where there's some like little pitfalls here, because with Tiny App, as we've seen, we could do things like, for example, create a user. Create a user. And really, just in this 3 kind of word phrase, I've got 2 interesting things here. I have create, which is an action, and then user, which is a noun or a resource, right? And what I'm touching on here is that CRUD, right? Create a resource, right? CRUD. So we're going to list out some of the CRUD actions in Tiny App. One of them being create a user. What other actions are there in Tiny App? What else could you do? Update user profile? Was that a thing you could do in Tiny App? Yeah. No. Edit one tiny URL. Cool. Did you have something? Show a user's URLs. Absolutely. What else did we have? Delete. Delete. Delete what thing? Delete a URL. Cool. And anything else? I mean, does the URL just kind of come out of the sky, or do we have to create a URL? Okay. So in my thing here are some examples. You got create a user, creating tiny URL, edit our tiny URL. Here's a non kind of cruddy action, just log in, right? But there's just these things that we can do with Tiny App. Now, how did we use Tiny App? What was the setup method that you have to go through to get Tiny App to run on your computer? What did you do? Does your computer come loaded up with Tiny App on it already? No, right? So you have to write it, right? And then every time you run Tiny App, what was the thing that you had to do? All right, npm install packages, sure. And then what else? What's that? Run the packages. What does that mean? Exactly, right. We have to make our server run, and there was a command, something like node server.js. Something like that. Yeah, or npm run start. Something to have our server start running. So if you run npm run start, it's the same as running node whatever file.js. I'm going to get rid of this part that says install the packages, because I just want to focus on the fact that when we want to use Tiny App, we have to have it running, right? We have to have it running. So what happens if, let's see, I'm going to give you, yeah, what happens if I go on Tiny App, I make a bunch of URLs, right? And then I stop the server and restart it. What happened to all those URLs that I made? They're gone, right? They're gone. Now, maybe that's, oh, whoops. Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's fine. Like, maybe we can just get by having Tiny App just run forever, right? So I'm going to kind of pitch an idea here. We collectively become the CEO of Tiny App Industries, right? You've made Tiny App, you're happy with the features, and you're like, you know what? I am going to release Tiny App publicly. I want to put it on the best possible server so I never have to shut it down, right? I'm going to put it on there, and I'm going to tell everybody about Tiny App, right? So you call up NASA. And you're like, hey, NASA, I'm just wondering, do you have any like spare supercomputers, any any laptops or whatever that I could use, any Alienware computers, right? And NASA's like, oh yeah, we got this thing, right? $10 a month. So you shell out the money, you get this super like NASA computer. You load up Tiny App, you SSH into the like supercomputer, and you go npm run start, and you get a nice URL, right? A nice place that people can go to access your Tiny App, and you start sending it to people. You send it to your friends. You're like, hey, you got any URLs that need shortening? I got tinyapp.com running on NASA supercomputers, right? And your friends start like sending these links out to people. Before you know it, your Tiny App has taken over like Vancouver, right? And Calgary. And it starts expanding across Canada. Everybody's into it, right? The Canadian government issues a mandate that everybody has to have a tinyapp.com account, right? Everything has to pass through those servers, right? You ICO, right? You go Tiny App coin, right? Everybody's on Tiny App, right? You make so much money. Everybody's wearing Tiny App hats, yet Tiny App forever tattooed on your neck. I'm really obsessed with tattoos, and I don't have any, but so everybody's into it. Brad Pitt releases a Tiny App animated movie where he plays a tiny URL. And what else? All this. It's going great. It's going great. You're chilling out on the beach, right? Because you own a whole beach now. Tiny beach. You're chilling out on the beach, and then you get this idea. You're like, hey, you know what? It's been 3 years since my Tiny App journey started. 3 years. I own half the world, right? I want to see. I want to get like a report done, a printout of all of the tiny URLs that are pointing to google.com. Right? Or I want to see a printout of how many users I have now. Or I want to see a printout of how many users have been made in the past week. Right? And this is all functionality that doesn't exist in TinyApp yet. But you want it. Right? You want it, and you can't. You can't do it, because if you turn off the NASA supercomputer, you lose everyone. Right? You lose everyone. The world would collapse at this point, right? Can you imagine? There's 8 billion people on the world at this point, right? And they all lose their tiny URLs, right? Tiny coin would plummet. But you're consumed. You're consumed as you're on this beach. You just keep drinking kind of virgin margaritas or whatever, and you're like, oh man, I need to know how many accounts there are. Like, you're consumed by it, but there's nothing you can do, right? And then at this point here, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen, I don't know, like Stephen King movies or whatever. You're just going insane, and then credits roll. What do you do? What do you do? So that's the motivation for this idea here, is that we need some way of having the data somewhere safe so we can shut down our machines and turn them back on again without losing everything. Right? So was that kind of enough motivation for this? All right. Okay, good. I hope so, because that's about as much as I have. So we say that TinyApp stores its data in... Aw, thanks. TinyApp stores its data in memory. Okay. TinyApp stores its data in memory, and anytime you shut down memory, anytime you shut down TinyApp, memory is cleared, right? Because the way that we stored data in TinyApp, does anybody remember, like, functionally how you did that? Like, what was the mechanic you used? Yeah, on the server, but like you'd get a thing and you'd have to store it somewhere. What's that? No, because we didn't. Like, it was just a JavaScript file, and we had a thing like URLs that was, like, what is this? It's an object. It's just a JavaScript object, right? In our TinyApp, all we had was just an object, or like we had users or whatever, right? We had objects in JavaScript. And whenever node restarts, those objects are cleared, right? They're just deleted. So just to put this into words here, we stored our data as an object in JavaScript, and when our program finishes running, the object goes away. And the word we use this for the word we use to describe this is, we say that it is not persistent. Right? We want our data to persist. Right? Think about, like, when you say that, oh, this person's really persistent, right? They keep, like, they're there every time, right? They're just fixed. They keep going. That's what we want our data to do. We want it to, regardless of, rain, snow, power outage, we want that data to persist. So what we're getting into here is the idea of full stack development. And we're looking at how to fill in this full stack. Because when we say full stack, there's generally the idea of front and back end. So the front end does all the, CSS, the HTML, the client-side JavaScript, Ajax-y stuff. In general, any fancy, cool, user-facing things. Right? Any fancy user-facing things, that's front end. And the back end is things like, well, let's say it serves specific pages. Right? So the back end is, I would ask for some data or ask for a page, and it serves that page. Generally, it serves specific pages or responses based on different routes. So say I do a get/dogs right? I should get all the dogs, right? The backend just kind of figures out what is being asked for, it goes and gets it, and it returns. And based on different routes, and also based on different parameters, e.g. who is logged in, things like that. So if I say something like get/friends, it should return all the friends for a particular person, right? Like that's what I'm kind of getting at. The other thing that the backend does is it stores and manages the data. Stores and manages the data. And this second point here, storing and managing the data, that's the part that's like really particularly important. Data is the thing that makes your service useful. Right? If tomorrow Facebook loses all of its front-end code, right? Or even most of its back-end code, or all of the back-end code, right? It's not the end of the world for Facebook because they have all the data, right? That's the really important part, is they have the data. That's the stuff people pay money for, right? An application is just a way to access data, right? If we think about the applications that we use, most useful web services need to store, manage, and show data, right? So if we think about something like YouTube, right? YouTube is a place where I store or view videos, right? That's what it does. I don't care about what's going on the back end. I want to see videos, right? Or like comments and likes and subscribers, like that stuff, data. Same with Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia is a place where we store articles and edits to articles, right? And we want to view articles. So in all of these kinds of like services that you use online, think about what are the bits of data that are being added, right? Like how is adding data happening, how is editing data happening, and how is removing data happening. So with TinyApp, we already said that these over here, creating a user, edit one tiny URL, show a user's URLs, this is the data that we are touching. Now, let's see. I want to, I kind of want to let you think about like if having the data stored inside of the server ends up with us losing all of the data when the server shuts down, what should we do with the data instead? Store it somewhere else, right? Just store it somewhere else, some other place that is not our server, right? A different place. And that's a pretty kind of vague answer, but it's the correct answer, right? We want to store the data somewhere other than our server. So there are a couple different options for doing this, but I want to lay some kind of qualifications for picking nice ways to store our data, right? Some qualifications for making like a good data storage place. First of all, this goes without saying, but I want the data to persist in this place. I want to have some smart interactions with the data. And I want multiple applications to share the same source of data. These are kind of like my 3 dream items, right? I want the data to persist, I want to have smart interactions, and I want multiple applications to share that data. And when I say smart interactions, I mean things like asking questions. How many of a thing, right? Find me a particular thing, right? Those kinds of questions or queries. Right? We want some source of data that can, or not source, some storage of data that can do that for us. So what we get here is the database, right? The base where the data is stored. A database is just, like abstractly speaking, it's just a separate thing that holds your data that your server can talk to, right? A separate thing that holds your data that a server can talk to. I want to highlight the word thing. Your database could be a person. Like, you could, for TinyApp, just kind of lure some of your friends into your house and then be like, okay, you're going to watch the screen. Anytime a word pops up, I want you to remember it, right? I want you to remember it. And then TinyApp shuts down. Like, you shut the server down, you turn it back on, and you're like, hey, Brad, give me the list of all the URLs. And Brad's like, I don't remember. And you're like, give me the URLs. And Brad will, tell you all the URLs. But you've got this separate place where you've stored the data, right? And again, thing. Because we have different options. Generally, if we think of this as a 3-tiered model, going interface, application, and logic. Oops. And data, we can plug anything we want to be this part here. Because the user is going to be using the interface to interact with the application and logic, which will then manipulate the data. So these things are all separated. Generally here again, this thing is pretty. Ooh, interface. This over here, logic such as, user does not exist. Right? Or other things like, you can't do that. Like, the application and the logic is the one that spits that stuff out to the interface, and then the data is everything we need. So, can you think of a couple kind of different ways? So I came up with the example of maybe kidnapping a friend and making them remember the tiny URLs. Can you think of some other better solutions for storing data? Yes. Writing JSON in a text file, right? Absolutely. Right? So one thing that we could do is write some JSON to a text file. And I actually want to split this up into two. One of them would be like just writing to a text file. Right? Maybe not even necessarily JSON, but just writing like lines of text. Right? If anybody here is familiar with like what a CSV is, it's like comma separated values. So I might have something like name, age, and then potato preference. So it might be Nima. I'm 23 now. And then potato preference, mashed. And then Jane is 1,000, and then 10,000, and then potato preference, vapor. Right? Do you even vape potatoes, man? Like, like there's, who knows, right? Like, some comma-separated values representing some data in a file that can be read back. And the same thing could be done in JSON, as you mentioned. This can have nicer structure, right? And I might have an array, and the array goes, let me just make this nice. Name, Nima, age, 23, and then potato preference, mashed. And we can have as many as we want listed like this. The nice thing about a JSON file is that I might have other things like friends. And then, this could be an array. Or, let's not do array. Let's do options for Nima. And then there'll be like a bunch of other things that maybe are different objects or whatever. Right? What I'm trying to say here is, with JSON, we can have objects that have like a nested structure. Whereas with a CSV, we're at this flat, like just values kind of level. Right? Does that make sense to people? Cool. So just trying to show that even if we choose the same kind of idea of writing to a text file, there's different formats in which we could write. Right? Here's a CSV and here's some JSON. And the nice thing about writing to a text file is that the text file is saved somewhere. I can copy that file, back it up on the cloud, right? I can email it to people. I could print this stuff out on a piece of paper and have it like saved somewhere, right? That's the thing, that full-on degree of separation. So, I'm just gonna save this. So, we will do something similar to this, but instead of writing to a straight text file, what we're going to use is a program. Right? We're going to use a separate program to which we'll talk to. Right? We'll talk to a separate program that's going to do all this stuff for us, and that program is going to be called a database management system. Okay. The one that we're using is called MongoDB. Right? MongoDB. That's the one we're using today. It's the one you'll be using for Twitter. But it's not the only one. It's not the only option. And I also want to stress that the way that Mongo does things isn't the only way to do things. So with Mongo, it's basically just like a place where you can store a bunch of JSON data. Right? So anything that you've been currently doing is JSON. Like you can dump that into Mongo, and it'll persist. But you're going to learn about other databases next week, right, that have a different structure to them, right? And that different structure might look a little bit more. Whoa. Okay. Whoa. Oh man, I was so in the zone. So some other ones might be MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres. This is the one that you'll learn next week. Here's another one, CouchDB. There's many. Oracle, right? Cassandra, right? Just a bunch of different database systems. MongoDB is interesting for us because it's what we call a NoSQL database. I'm going to format this stuff nicely when I send it out. Mongo is a NoSQL database, and you're like, Nima, what does that mean? And I say, I'm not going to tell you right now. You're going to learn about it next week. Right? So Mongo is a place where we're going to store a bunch of JSON. So what we'll do is we're going to dive a little bit into kind of reading about Mongo, seeing it a little bit in action. Then we'll take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to have a big demo that we'll go through. Right? So Mongo, I could start off by going into my terminal. In my terminal here, let me just make this big so everyone can see. Is that big enough for people? Yeah? So if I'm here and I go Mongo, not mango, Mongo, and I go enter, okay, well, something happened. Got MongoDB shell version v403. If you run this in your terminal, you will end up with a different output. I just want to show you what happens on mine, because Mongo is built up of two parts. There's the program Mongo, the database that has to be running somewhere. The database, I'm going to call it a server that has to be running somewhere. And then there's the program that we can use as human beings to interact with Mongo. Right? So on my machine, I have to go MongoD. Your Vagrant already has MongoD running, right? MongoD means the Mongo daemon, or the daemon, like the ongoing program, starting the server. Okay? It's kind of like running npm start. I already have, you already have yours, I would have to run mine. So that's one part to it. Once I have this thing running, then I could go Mongo, and now I'm in a little prompt. I'm in a little prompt where I can interact with Mongo. So I really want to stress that MongoDB, it's a separate program that is running on your machine, right, into which you can throw things. So when I run the Mongo command like this, That's entering me into the shell that I can use to talk to Mongo. And I can go hello, and Mongo will say hello is not defined. Okay, fair enough. But I might do other things like quit. Okay, quit is a function. I can run the quit function, and now I'm out. Does this kind of look familiar to you? It kind of looks like when you're inside of the Node REPL. Right? It kind of looks like JavaScript. So you're going to see that the language that we're going to use to talk to Mongo in this shell is very similar to JavaScript. Okay? The syntax is going to look sort of familiar in some ways. So I don't want to just go on and start writing a bunch of kind of like code for you here. What I want us to do first is look at the documentation. So I'm going to go to the internet, and I'm going to go MongoDB. And I go, wow, look at that. There's a whole website for it. Wow. Your job is to like go to this thing and bookmark it and have it open all the time. I swear, if I get an assistance request from Mongo and you don't have the thing open, I'm just going to like smoke bomb, disappear. You won't see me ever again. Until like a minute later because I work here. But like, legit, read the docs. Because the MongoDB documentation is like, tasty. These are some tasty docs. You don't get this often. Like, these are some nice docs. In fact, it's even got a thing right here, getting started. Getting started. That's probably me. Okay. So I want to draw your attention first to the fact that what color is the top bar here of this website? It's white, right? White. Very good. Okay, I'm going to Google something else here. What color is this here? I guess it's blackish for you. It's like brown. It's like a dark brown. Are these the same color? No. But they look very similar as far as pages go. They're two different websites. Two different websites that you're going to become familiar with. And we're going to explore both of them in depth over the course of like the next little bit. Basically, one of these is the Mongo shell documentation. And the other one is the Mongo Node.js driver documentation. Right? Those words don't mean anything to you right now. But I want to stress the fact that these are two separate websites. Right? So maybe if you want to write on a post-it note, check the color of the banner, right? That might help you a lot when you're trying to debug things later. So, the Mongo shell documentation here that I will link in, it shows me a bunch of different kind of actions that I can do with Mongo. So Mongo is structured as kind of this. It will have Mongo has a server running. So there's a Mongo server program. Right? There's the Mongo server program. Inside of the Mongo server, there are many databases. There are many databases for you to pick from or create. And then inside each one of these databases, there are what we call collections. Right? Every database is built up of many collections, and every collection has documents. What does this mean? Well, we could have, if we were thinking of real life, I might have a warehouse, and in a warehouse I might have a particular room, and in that particular room I might have a bunch of like folders just lying about in the room, I guess. This was not a great, and then each folder has lots of papers. This will make more sense if this analogy here doesn't make a ton of sense. But the architecture here is server, databases, collections, and documents. So to connect to a particular server, I've already technically done that. I go Mongo, and now I've connected to the server. If I want to see all of the databases, I go show DBs, and I see all of the databases that exist. Right? Admin, config, hip hop, local, tweets. Whoa, that's a big database. Yeah, we're working with tweets. Yeah, no, we're working with hip hop. So here's a database. And if I want to use a particular database, I can go use and then the name of the database. So all these commands I will give you in the notes. Use hip hop. And what this lets me do now is I can run queries on the hip hop database, such as show collections to see all of the collections inside of the hip hop database. So we have the server. The server has a hip hop database. The hip hop database has 3 collections: a collection of artists, a collection of lyrics, and a collection of songs. Now, the queries, once I've said I'm using a particular database from the shell here, are going to look like db dot and then the name of one of these collections, like artists, dot, and then there's some methods that we can run, right? See how this already kind of looks like JavaScript, right? So db artists, and then I might say find one. Who is it? Who's this artist? Who do you think? Oh, snap. Well, this is really long. I have to like scroll way up. Kanye West. Oh my god. Yeah, it's Kanye West. Right? So the first artist here in my hip hop database is Kanye West. And there's a bunch of information here about Kanye West that I've stored in this database. Things like artists that Kanye is related to. Yeah, the genre of Kanye, which is apparently pop rap. What's that? Yeah, so Jay-Z is one of the related artists, right? But what I want to draw your attention to is, what does this thing kind of look like? It's a JSON object, right? You already know this stuff. Like, Nima, why do we even have this lecture? Like, I know this stuff already. Right? It's a JSON object. So you'll be able to take any JSON that you have and just dump it in, right? That's one of the nice things about Mongo, is you can just dump, right? You're going to see other databases, they might not use JSON, so it might be a little bit, like you might have to massage your data a little bit to dump it. So the methods that exist in here, I did db artists find one, maybe db artists count. Is that a thing? Yes, it is. I have 1,690 artists in this hip hop database that I built. So if we go to the Mongo shell documentation, we could take a look at the various things that we can do with it. So, for example, I'm seeing the word insert. db.someCollection insert. Okay? db.someCollection find, if I want to select all documents. It's saying if I want to select all the documents, I can go db.collection.find and then pass it curly braces. And I go in here and I go db.artists.find and I go curly braces in here, and when I go enter, I got a whole bunch of garbage. Right? I got a whole bunch of garbage. What I'm getting here is every single one of my artists in the database just being printed out. Why is it every artist? I didn't put anything in the filter here. I didn't say find, something. Find a particular artist. So when you do find one, it'll find a particular artist. And one of the properties I have in here is name. So I could do db artist find and say, hey, find me everybody that has the name. I think Jay-Z is written in all caps, but let's see. Cool, there we go. So I asked Mongo to find all of the artists with the name Jay-Z. So what I'm trying to draw your attention to here is that with find, I'm giving it an object that it's going to use to filter. Now, this stuff here, pretty much illegible, right? Pretty much illegible. But the Mongo shell gives me this nice little method that goes pretty. And I can make me feel pretty. There we go, pretty. Right? And here's JZ, but like pretty printed. Right? Does this make sense? So anything that you want to do to data, any of the CRUD actions you can do with Mongo, right? So I can find something. I could also probably insert. Okay. Oh, notice, by the way, I said find one earlier. So find one is going to be find me the very first one that matches the format or the filter that I give it, and then also pretty print it. It's just shorthand for that. Now, say I want to do some inserting. I'm going to look over here at the stuff. So this is all how to filter for a particular thing. Insert. I could insert a document or insert many. I'm just going to look for introduction to MongoDB. Okay, so if I go MongoDB insert 1, it'll take me to the Mongo documentation, or they have a bunch of guides on how to do particular things, like insert documents. And what I really like about these guides is that they put in like a little embedded Mongo shell that you can play with. Right? So here's the Mongo web shell, and if I click to connect, sometimes it takes a little while. This was really fast. I could see all the collections. There aren't any. But if I try to insert something into a collection that doesn't exist yet, it'll like create that collection. So I tried to insert one item into the inventory when there wasn't a collections inventory, and it didn't throw an error. Now when I go show collections, I've got an inventory, and if I look at what's inside of my inventory, I have that one object in there. Is there anything particularly striking about this insert one function that we're running? Not really. We're just passing it an object that we want to be inserted into that collection. And the thing about Mongo is that Mongo does not care. Like, Mongo does not care what you give it. If I went deep, like, notice that an artist apparently has href, followers, images, type, ID, genius, name. Right? If I went db.artists.insert1, or sorry, insert, and I said, is it insert one or insert? I always forget. Insert one, and I gave it an object that went, oh, name, Nima, tagline, you know who it is. You know, like, I don't know if y'all listen to like SoundCloud stuff, but you'll be listening to like the most unknown hip hop released by some kid, like some 14-year-old in like their basement. It always starts off with like, it's your boy, you know who it is, and you're like, no, I actually don't. I have no idea. Like, just tell me, who are you? Whereas then there's like producers, like hip hop producers, they'll put like a tagline of themselves at the beginning of every song. So you're listening to a song and you're like, oh, this feels like, is this DJ Mustard? And then YG will come in and be like, Mustard on the beat. And you're like, it was DJ Mustard. Or like, Honorable C Note. I don't know. I listen to a lot of like trap and hip hop stuff. There we go. I was just kind of delaying that insertion. And now when I go dbartists.count, what? 1691? Is Nima in there? I don't know. Let's find out. Like, if I go db find one with the name Nima, goes, hey, there's Nima. You know who it is. And if I tried to filter by tagline, right, I could do that as well. I could say, hey, find me the person with the tagline. You know who it is. right? And it's just Nima. Right? Say this would be interesting. If I look at Kanye, Kanye has Kanye has the genre that includes pop rap. So if I looked for like all the artists that have genre pop rap, right? Like, ooh, did I miss? Oh, I missed a curly race. Okay, so if I look for the artists that have pop rap as their thing, ooh, genres? Yeah. So here are all the artists that is found with the thing pop rap. Evidently, only Kanye West is the one that has just pop rap, but like, you know, you might filter and stuff like that. Right? So we've done inserting, we've done some reading. If I wanted to delete Nima, for filtering, I can just say part of it. So see here, I said find one with the genres pop rap, and I didn't say find one with the genres pop rap, name Kanye West, yada 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 yada. I just ask for some of it. If you're talking about the array here, find the genres that is pop rap. I'm pretty sure you could also say find people that include pop rap and not just the array pop rap. That I would have to just look up. So filter by array. Match an element. To match an element in an array, apparently you can go db inventory or collection find and then tags and then just give it one of the things. So I guess if I went genres pop rap like that, I would get Kanye. Yeah, yes, you could do something like matches sort of, right? You can do that kind of like Control F where you don't have to type in the whole thing. So right now, if I do find everybody who includes pop rap and then count all of them, I get 29 people that have pop rap as one of their genres. Right? This here is one of those smart interactions that I was mentioning before. Right? Where I'm getting everything of a particular type and then I'm counting. Right? So do we see the usability of something like this, the viability of having something like this for Tiny App, which you're totally going to go back to. So last thing that I might want to do right now is delete Nima. db.artists. I think it's delete one. And then let's see, name, Nima. This might work. Oh no! You haven't seen the last of me? No, okay, I'm gone. And if I go to now find one artist that matches Nima, there aren't any. Okay. Cool. I'm just going to put this in the notes. Ooh. I mean, like, delete everything that matches the genre. Yeah, why not? So the question here for Calgary was, can you just remove like a particular tag? You can do whatever you want as your data, right? If you see it, you can touch it, right? You can put safety restrictions on things, right? So a database might have things like, oh, you're not allowed to delete this unless you've already deleted this other thing. Right? Like you can put those kinds of restrictions on. We're not going to talk about that today, but you're going to learn more about that next week, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. The question here was, say we had a bunch of artists, could we pull the artists who are like artists in 2018 and store them in a different place? You can do anything you want, right? Anything. So here I have a db.songs, right, with 56,000 songs, right, that I've just like kind of compiled. Huh? Yeah, I've just made a different collection. So you could make a, if you're working in Mongo, you could have a separate collection for DB artists in 2018. Or why not just store all of them in artists and go DB artists and then find all of the ones that have year 2018, right? So you can filter from this large thing. Mongo is super fast, like so fast, right? Notice I have like what did I say? I have 1,600 artists or something, and I added one, and it just went okay, like immediately. If I try to ask for like a song, um, anybody know like a hip hop song you want to see? Like, I might have it in here. What's that? Rappers. Oh, okay. Okay, that might be tough. Let's see. Find one. My songs are structured with a title. So if I go title, uh, rappers. Does Rappers Delight have an apostrophe? Oh snap! Yo, I got it. All right. Well, Rappers Delight. I don't think this is the one you're thinking of. Yeah, it's not the Sugar Hill Gang one. Um, there might be more than one Rappers Delight though. Let's see. There's a couple. Sugar Hill Gang right there. Right. I've got everything. You think of hip hop, I got it. As long as it wasn't released like after 2 years ago, because that's when I made this database. So I'm gonna show you one thing, then we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna dive into the demo that involves doing this stuff, but with Node.js, right? Because notice right now I'm writing in a shell. Okay, when we come back, I'm gonna show you how to write JavaScript that makes this stuff happen. But just to shill my hip hop database, if you go to GitHub and look me up, first of all, language alert, warning. There's gonna be some swear words on the screen. I didn't write them. I have a project called Databased. Anybody know like Lil B, like the based god? No? Okay, so there's a rapper calls himself the based god. So I went, oh, the data-based. It's a hip hop database. I scraped together Spotify, Last.fm, and Genius to put together all sorts of information in one place. So you could do things for like statistical analysis or machine learning or whatever. So lyrics, artists, genres. And then I started making like these little word clouds. So this is Drake. This is Nicki Minaj. And this is Mick Jenkins. Mick Jenkins is just he's a rapper who's got an album about water. Like the metaphor for the whole album is water. So I made little word clouds. I did things like using a neural network to generate like a Jay-Z song, right? These are just random kind of Jay-Z lyrics generated. How the bin on the sea to still the flether, right? Right, like whatever that means. Strop. Or there's this really, really messy chart. I ran it and I didn't want to like fix it up, but of like subgenres of hip hop. So all these people are like related to each other. So you can see little islands of stuff. Like over here is like alternative, New York or like East Coast hip hop, and then here's Biggie, all sorts of cool stuff. And then there's I don't know if anybody listens to Flying Lotus, but Flying Lotus is just on their own, which is funny. Cool. Any questions before we take a quick break? So our break is going to be exactly 7 minutes. So at 10:17, Brick Squad, we're going to continue. No Gucci Mane fans here? No? Okay. Uh, 18. Yeah, the question was how old was I when I started programming? Yeah, 18. Cool. So see you all in 6 minutes now. 10:17, we'll continue. Yo, all right, welcome back. I'm just gonna wait up to get confirmation from y'all that the audio is working, and as soon as I get some form of hand wave, then we'll get going. So yeah, just whenever y'all are ready. I have been considering playing music during lectures, kind of just like instrumental, just or like kind of smooth, jazzy stuff, right? Just to get people in the, because it's the morning, right? Or I might do like spoken word or something to get just to get the thoughts kind of running in the morning. What's that? Actually, that would be good. We just a couple cohorts ago, I don't know what we stopped. There's a tradition of having plank club every couple days. So at a certain time, everybody would like get together and they'd all just like plank for a minute, and then they'd get up and then they would have high five club, which is everybody high fives, and then they go back to their stuff. I snuck into high five club, and I was only part of plank club like two or three times. Um, could I get confirmation from Calgary though that the stream and the audio are working for y'all? Cool. So, without further ado, we're gonna dive into some fairly kind of sizable demo. When I say a sizable demo, what I mean is that some of it has been designed so that you'll like understand all of it, and some of it has been designed so that you might have to put a little bit of extra effort, right, to kind of think about it afterwards. But basically, I have a project called Kanye. And the thing about this Kanye project is if I npm start and run this thing, I'm not even going to look at the code right now. Server's running at 3000, and we go to localhost 3000, and you get to see KanyeLyrics.com. Whoa! The premier source for Kanye West's lyrics. You want Kanye West lyrics? We got them. Right? And here are, I mean, three of his really like biggest hits: Old MacDonald, Row 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 Your Boat, and Ba Ba Black Sheep. I mean, this one, Row 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 Your Boat, controversial, a little controversial, but these other two, just great hits. And I mean, the lyrics are there. Old MacDonald had a farm, right? Row 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 Your Boat, gently down the stream, right? This one was off of Yeezus, and then Ba Ba Black Sheep, Have You Any Wool, right? These are some some great hits. And we have some buttons here: edit, delete. If I go to edit, I might be able to change the text here. Have you any wool? Bah, right? Save. At the moment, nothing's happening. Right? Same with delete. When I go delete, it just takes me back to the home page and nothing happens. Right? There's a button that says add lyrics. It'll take me to a form. I can write stuff out, but nothing happens. So what I want to do is take this stuff and connect it to a database, right? And have my Kanye Lyrics website watch that database, right? Pull data from there, right? So we're gonna explore the code that I have in my Kanye project. So here's Kanye, and this looks similar but not exactly like your Tweeter project. I've purposefully kind of used a similar but slightly twisted structure. You'll notice there's a views file, routes, app.js. App.js kind of registers a couple different routers, lyrics router, index router, and puts them under different routes or whatever. The views are things like, index, view, and then I'm using, this is more like Tiny App than Tweeter, but I'm using EJS to render apparently a bunch of songs on a page. If I make my way through the routes and look at things like the index routes, I'll notice that when I get just to home page, get home page, it goes render, whatever the index view is, and these are the template variables, songs. And these up here are the songs. It's just an array. Just an array of things. Does this confuse anybody? Okay. If I go ahead and I change this thing, and maybe I add another song. I don't know. What's a song? Feel the Love. Okay. I'm not going to put any lyrics right now, but I'm going to keep an idea of 4. When I restart my server, when I restart my server and I go check what's going on this page, I'm going to have Feel the Love on here. Right. So at the moment, my thing works exactly like TinyApp in that sense of it's pulling stuff from this array. Now, I went ahead and I made my thing a little silly in the sense that when I look at things like my lyrics routes, I've duplicated that array somewhere, right? I just doubled it. And whenever I'm looking for, say I'm looking for a particular song, so get/id for a lyric, it goes to find that song from the array, and then it puts it into the template vars and sends it over. Okay, so similar to TinyApp, except your TinyApp had a structure that was an object. Mine is a structure that's an array, but same kind of idea. And if to here, like, you know, I went ahead and I changed Baba Black Sheep, just some other lyrics. If I go ahead and I restart my server and I go check out the lyrics for Baba Black Sheep, this now says Bah instead of Have You Any Wool. Okay. So again, my idea now here is how do we connect this thing to MongoDB? So when you have a program and another program that need to talk to each other, right? You have to use something in between, right? Like an API, right? We'll call that thing an API. And do you remember when I said the word API? I think like way back when I said it's a really vague term. API just means something that sits in between two things to let them talk with each other. One of these things that sits in the middle, this API, could be a thing we call a driver, right? And a driver for us is going to be a library that we'll bring into our code to interact with MongoDB. So the library that we're using, the library that we're going to use is this MongoDB Node.js driver. So it's going to be something that we can npm install and require into our code to then make connections to a database. Now, I want to stress that the way I'm showing you the setup right now might be slightly different than what you're going to do. Right? I want you to follow the documentation that you're told to follow by Compass in the install. The code otherwise is going to be pretty much the same. If I go to the MongoDB Node.js driver, remember I said this is a different website, right? Because now we're going to be working in JavaScript. And I might do something like, okay, let's go to the reference for the 3.1, the newest version, and it'll say things like, okay, if you want to install the driver, there we go, and then there's a quick start here. I'm going to follow both of them. So first thing to do is make sure that the driver is installed with npm install mongodb save. Okay, or just npm install mongodb. So if I do that, Just gonna make sure that, yeah. If I do that, npm install MongoDB, what I should end up with after a second or two is that when I check my package JSON for Kanye, I now have MongoDB added in there. Okay? I want to stress, this isn't Mongo. This is the driver for Node to talk to Mongo that's already running on my machine. Right? And once I've done that, I mean, that's really all we need to do on the installation. But to actually use it, we can require in the Mongo client. Require the Mongo client. I want to just show you what this looks like in maybe a small script. So inside of the Kanye, I'm just going to make a file called test.js, into which I'm just going to write a bunch of JavaScript to test out. So I should be able to run node test.js and see that I got something out. So the thing that I console logged out was whatever the Mongo client is. Okay, just trying to show you it's some object, and we can do things with it. Here, they've given us a whole bunch of code that we can kind of bring in. So I'm going to paste all of it. And we're going to work our way through this kind of slowly. Mongo client, there's this library called assert that's already built into Node. And this assert library is just going to be used for things like make sure that there are no errors. Things like that. It's used so that you don't have to write an if statement to check to see if something works. You can just write one line. That's the only reason you might use it. Const URL pointing to my local host and this here, 27017. That's the port that MongoDB is running on. Because again, it's a program. Right? It's a program somewhere. It could be on my machine, or it could be on, markzucksfridge.com, right? Like it could be somewhere else. It just happens to be localhost right now. Database name, mine's called hip hop. And then client. So we're going to make a client that points to that URL. And then this here is interesting because we're saying something like when the client connects, right? So connect to the client, connect to that database, and then run this function. Here's a callback. You can make heavy use of callbacks over the course of your career as a web developer, and it's important to understand the reason we have callbacks is because things take time to run, right? In JavaScript, we're going to be making asynchronous operations. And it takes time to run those things. We don't know when our code is going to run. So we'll give a function, hey, here's this action, run it when you're done. Right? So once the client is connected, it'll run this thing, and it should say connected successfully to server, and then that's it. It grabs the database, or it makes a shorthand, client.db of whatever the database name is, so hip hop, and then it closes. Check it out. Connected successfully to server. Right? Ignore the other error. Yeah, just ignore this other error. Connected successfully to the server. If I wanted to do things like query the thing, right? I might be able to do that through JavaScript now instead of having to go through the shell. Notice this thing as well. Close the connection. I could get rid of this. And now what happens? No, it's not the Mongo shell. I only ran Node. The line of code that I removed was client.close. It stays open, right? The connection just hangs. So it's there. Like it's like in Express when you have your thing running and it just never closes. Okay, it's just waiting. It's not a prompt. Like I can't ls or whatever. It's just waiting. And I can close it with Control C. Okay. So once you Control C, yeah, like it closes. Yeah. Or like rather, you don't have to worry. It's like a dead connection, and the server will handle that dead connection. So I'll often, for these demos, like not have client close in there. And for your project, like you shouldn't have client close in there, in my opinion. I want you to kind of explore that a little bit. So the thing is, I have access to this database, and I was doing things earlier like db dot, what I had done, like artists dot count. It's like, what if I try to console log this? Like that didn't necessarily work. Didn't necessarily work. Or like I had things like find one name Kanye West. That doesn't necessarily work either. But we're going to see something similar come out, right, in the node driver for Mongo, right? It's going to be similar, the syntax. If I want to find a thing, find one. If I want to find a particular document with like a filter, I need to go collection to actually get that collection first. So the collection here is going to be db collection documents. In my case, it's db collection artists. So I've got my database, and then I might say db collection artists. And let me just call this artists for now. Right, so I couldn't go db.artists, but I can go db collection artists. And then when I want to find something, it's going to look like this. Artists find, and I might say name is Kanye West. And then the thing is, I have to then turn that result into an array, because what I get back from Mongo, if I was just to console log this, as it is, the thing that I get back is this weird object. This really weird object that, you know, it still has query name Kanye West in there and just a bunch of stuff I don't understand. So what I have to do is turn this into an array first. And once it's turned into an array, I can do things like, okay, let's make sure that there's no errors. This is the same as going if error throw error or something. Have y'all talked about errors yet? Error handling and promises? No? Okay, so let's say if error console log there was an error. Right? Like I could do something like that in case maybe the database, you know, broke when I tried to access the thing. In fact, let me just remove this whole assert thing. I think that's just confusing. And then I can go console log, I found the following records, right? Found the following things, and console log the following things. Huh. Oh, I tried to use assert, didn't I? Okay. Sorry, I just removed assert from the require. What? That wasn't supposed to happen. Kanye West, artists, fine. Oh, I still have console log wrapped around this. Damn. Sorry about that. So before I run this, I just want to make sure everybody understands. Artists find Kanye West, turn the result of that into an array. This callback gets called, and I can console log all the documents that had been found in the database that match the name Kanye West. Hey, I got Kanye West. Found the following records, and I got an array with only one thing in it, this thing, and it was Kanye West. Right? And I could do more things. Maybe instead of artists, I could do find me songs. Find me songs that match the name Mercy. I think I might have called the song property title, but let's see. I did call it title. Have the title Mercy. And now I've got the song that matches Mercy. Right? Mercy by Kanye West, 2 Chainz, Big Sean, Pusha T. Right? And then I've got another one here, Mercy by Rick Ross. And another one, Mercy by Traffic, and Mercy by Lil Chucky. Right? So any of those operations that I did before in the Mongo shell, I can do in here. Any of them. I would just have to look up in the docs and say, okay, well, this is finding a document. Up here is inserting a document. Insert a document. But again, I really want to point out, notice the use of callbacks here. Right? When I go to collection, insert many, I can give it, maybe an array of things that need to be inserted, and then I have to pass it a callback. Because our database is somewhere. Somewhere. It's not like the object that you had as your database in TinyApp that you could just synchronously add and remove things from. This database here, MongoDB, is not in our server. So every time we want to access it, it's going to take time. Right? The database might be on the moon. It could take 3 minutes to access it. Right? So we put a callback on it so that whatever we want to run with the data, right, it'll run afterwards in the callback. Does that make sense? Right? We don't want our program to kind of like halt and just wait until the data is ready. Right? There's other things that we might want to do. So anytime, again, collection, insert many, right? Callback is passed to it. And the important part of this callback here is the fact that you get the result as the second parameter, right? Ignore these asserts, ignore all that stuff. Just console log the result, right? Now, they've made this into like a function to which you can pass some random callback. What do you do with the data after you've gotten it? And I'm going to show you kind of the use of that here. So if in my little test.js here, I make a function called get. Well, we'll do insert documents. Insert documents that inserts into whatever database you pass it in the collection songs. It'll insert, in this case, maybe a document, a song called I Love to Code. By, I don't know who, Death Grips. Artists, Death Grips. Right? Just something being added to a collection. And then I've said, oh, okay, after you run that, say that you inserted the document into the collection and call some callback. What this lets me do is in here I could do something like This is called insert documents. I go insert documents that takes a database. So I have a database here called DB. And then I can pass it some callback to run on whatever the result is. Okay? So I've like modularized my code a little bit. Instead of running that query here, just in straight up flat here, I've made it a function that I can call. So that callback that I passed it, this one here, only gets run after the insert is complete. Right, so that's something that you already have sort of set up and you're going to keep working with, is modularizing these like data helper functions, right? Modularizing them, having them set apart somewhere so that anytime you want to insert a document, you might go insert documents and just run that. Right? As opposed to having to write the entire query out every time. Does that make sense? Cool. So I want to hop into doing that with the Kanye West demo here, which involves, first of all, I said I wanted to make sure that the songs that I was getting, for the index page were like the songs. So the first thing that I'll need to do is actually bring in the Mongo client into my Kanye project. I'm going to be kind of silly and do it everywhere that I use Mongo. I'm going to bring in a new client. Okay? So I'm going to open many different clients, or rather two, because I have two different files. You are going to do something different, right? And I want you to like see what the difference between what you make with Compass guiding you and what I've made, like how are those things slightly different. So I'm bringing in the Mongo client. I no longer want to use these songs. Instead, what I want to do is somehow grab the songs from the database and return them, right? Filter just for the songs that are for Kanye West. So I have over here a little bit of code that I'm gonna lightly kind of paste in and explain my way through. So when when I have to connect to Mongo, I need to have that whole Mongo client connect and then connect to a particular database name. I need all of that. And then I need to say, here's the collection that I want to grab stuff from. So in my case here, if this router, this get slash needs access to the database, in my case, the way I've written it, I need to make sure that all of this stuff is contained within Mongo Client Connect. Can you see why this is like not great though? I've added this whole kind of layer of extra stuff on top, right? Yours is going to look a little bit slightly different, right? Like very slightly different. So Mongo Client Connect, and then I'm registering all these routes. Yes. So the question here was, can you use promises instead of callbacks so the website doesn't wait for the database? I mean, you can use promises instead of callbacks, but I don't think they'll do what you think they do. Promises are just taking callbacks and squishing them. Right? So if I was to do a promise, I would still have to say that this has to happen after the promise. Here I've written it as this has to happen after the connection here in the callback. So they end up doing the same thing. The only thing a promise does is it makes it so your code doesn't look like this. It looks like this instead. Do you know what I mean? It goes from being indented a whole bunch to not being indented a whole bunch. So Mongo client connect. And then I want to query for the songs and pass them in. So I have a little bit of code here that does that. I'm just going to paste this right above, and we're going to take a look at what the difference here is. So I used to just go grab the songs from that array. Now I'm saying from the collection, find all of the songs, and if you look into my songs database, every song has a Genius primary artist with a name. So I'm saying, give me all the songs that match Kanye West. Turn that collection to an array, like what we just saw. And then with those documents, pass them into the render. You'll notice that I map through the documents. I map through the documents because the stuff I have in the database doesn't exactly match the format of the songs that I had before. Right? If I go look at Mongo, for example, and I go use hip hop db dot songs dot find one. Every song has like this structure here, but the way I need it for my EJS file is a title and an ID. So I'm just mapping through. And then I pass it out through render. And what we're going to see now is if I start my server again, it doesn't work. Oh, because I pasted in some code and obviously I forgot a thing. Over when I said to connect, I forgot to give it the actual URL it's supposed to connect to, so let me just grab that. There you go. So it connects to that URL. Before I run this, I want to acknowledge the fact that this demo, like this thing here, I know I've zoomed a little bit, right? And I've been bringing in code. And I want to stress the fact that the reason for that is because I've shown you the stuff already, right? Everything that's like just the basic stuff, I'm going to have in this test.js file. I'm going to format it and give it to you. And the Kanye stuff is like stretch, right? It's like taking those ideas and implementing them in a big project, right? So it's okay if there's still kind of like loose threads. So let me just start the server. It doesn't crash. And now when I go to localhost 3000, I actually hate Kanye. No, I love Kanye. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan. When I refresh, what do I get? Whoa! I got all the songs. All day, a minute, cold, famous, right? Mercy. All the hits. Really, really like a lot of songs. Just the order that they were scraped from the web service with. So I'm getting them in the order that the database returns them in. But I could do things like order them by, depending on what information a song has. I could order them alphabetically maybe. Right? If I had a year release, I could order them by year release or stuff like that. And that's that smart interaction. Right? So in the find here, when you do db collection find, you know, there's bound to be some way to maybe pass in a parameter saying sort, right? And I do want you to take a look at that. So right now everything's being passed in. I'll notice though that when I go to click on Mercy, for example, let me copy the link address. It points now to links / this Genius ID because of the way I set up my EJS file. If I go to that thing though, it can't find the song because I now need to look at where is my like lyrics page trying to get songs from, right? My lyrics page is still trying to get songs from a songs array that I'd made. So in my case, I need to redo all of that Mongo stuff here, right? All that Mongo stuff needs to be redone. Right? So let me just go through that. Again, I want to point out that yours, your tweeter is going to be a better formatted way of this, right? I want to show you kind of like my naive way of going about every time making a new Mongo connection. So let me just bring in from my stuff here, Kanye lyrics routes. Go all the way down to here. It's just gonna take a second. Okay. And then I'm gonna have to again wrap everything in that Mongo client connect. So now I've pasted in some code saying whereas before it used to get the song from the songs array. Now I have it set up so that when it needs to find the song, it gets it from the collection. And I'm saying collection, find one with the genius ID of a particular thing. Notice that I'm not doing the to array here. Do you see that? I haven't taken the result and turned it into an array because I only got back one object. I said find me one. So whereas over here I had to say not this one, over in here I had to say find me everything that matches Kanye West and then turn that into an array. With this one instead I can say find me one that matches that genius ID for the song. And then with that song, I'm just reformatting it nicely so that I can put it into my template vars. And now if I restart my server, doesn't crash just yet. Notice that I get 2 connected successfully to servers because I've opened up 2 connections. And when I check this here and go refresh, I get all my songs or all the lyrics for Mercy. If I go back, I can find all the lyrics for Bound 2. Right? And I've gone ahead and I've done some nice formatting so it like comes out. Okay, so we've done the reading. We've done reading of a bunch of stuff. We've done reading of one thing. And now what I want to do is editing a particular thing. Because if I go to Mercy right now, or let's do Bound 2, and I go to edit, that thing is still breaking. Right? I'm trying to show you the process of like when you bring something in, you're going to have to go through and like clean up. There's a lot of just janitorial duty that you have to make sure like all the wires are connected, right? Where have I left some loose ends? So here is another one, kind of similar to when you did your cookie session stuff and you had to go through and fix all of that. Right? Same kind of process. I realized, oh, for my edit route, it's still getting it from the array. So instead of doing that, let me just remove this other route here. Instead of doing that, I'm going to do find one, like find that particular collection. Okay, and pass it in. Oh, whoops, I copied again. Find one, and then we'll paste. Right. Am I missing something? I am, because find one then has a curly brace that I need to close here. Right? Does this make sense? So now my edit form, right? My edit form is also getting all that stuff. And if I go and I refresh and I check out my edit form, it'll be filled in with all that stuff. So this is a little bit more reading to get me to the point where I could change this and say, hey, instead of produced by Kanye West, produced by Nima Boscarino, right? Yeah, wham, right? Like I'm taking credit for this amazing song. And also, it looks like in the lyrics for some reason there's a little Google tag or whatever. We'll just get rid of that. Let's go through and do a little bit of cleaning up. When I go save, did it save it? It didn't save any of those changes. It didn't save any of them. So I need to go through again and fix all that stuff. So if I go to save, I notice that save is currently just redirecting. So instead of redirecting, I might want to do something more along the lines of like do the saving and then redirect. So we already saw kind of what an insert looks like, right? There's an update as well, right? Because create, read, update, and then destroy, like those are the things. So the update over here is going to look like a update 1, where I'll give it a filter saying, what am I particularly looking for? And I'm going to say, I'm looking for the one that has Genius ID of this particular thing. And I'm just converting a string into an integer. And then this here is the thing that I want to update. I want to say set the text to, and then in my form that's being returned, I have a value called edited lyric. Yes. Like in the database? Yeah. Yep. So the question was, do I always want an ID in the files or in the database? And the answer is, like, sort of. Yeah. Your Mongo is going to automatically assign an ID. Right? So if I go to like my Mongo shell, oops, oh no. If I go to the Mongo shell, one of the things that I had done was insert one called Nima, and you'll notice that I get back an object ID. And now when I go, hey DB artists, find one that matches name, Nima, I got this ID attached to me, and I never set that myself. But the thing is, this object ID is like super weird and long. So in my database, what I like to do for this one is also set my own ID. And the ID that I'm using is the one that I've pulled from genius.com that stores all of the lyrics. Right? So you may or may not set your own ID. You do always want some way of identifying your objects though, right? Otherwise, like, how are you going to find a particular thing? So what I'm saying here right now is update 1, set the text to this new text. And I know that this syntax looks super freaky, right? It's super freaky. What I want you to do is take this stuff from the documentation, right? Come up with like the simple example, like quote unquote simple of insert a document, update a document, right? And make a little cheat sheet for yourself. Because I promise you, I always forget how to do this, which is why for this demo I have a completed project that I paste code into, right? So if you need to figure out how updating is going to work, right? Not that you're going to do updating like very much or at all with Mongo in your Tweeter project, but in the future, don't feel bad about just Googling this stuff. Right? Cool, and now what I'm saying here is update the text and redirect. So now I restart my server. Whoops, wrong one. Restart my server. When I go over here and I refresh, I can pick any song. Let's pick a spaceship. A spaceship in here? Yeah. So here's spaceship. I could go edit it, produced by Kanye West, featuring Nima, Boscarino, and I'll be on the hook. You know who it is. It's your boy. Okay, and then when I go save, wow, that didn't do it, eh? That was anticlimactic. I don't know, let's see. Router post, edit, rec, console log, rec body. What's that? It is the wrong one, yeah. Uh, I just, I totally forgot to copy this stuff in. Good call. So here we go. Do the saving and then do the redirect. Thanks for that. Okay, so now I'm going to save, restart, go over here, edit the song, featuring Nima. And then I'm going to go, like, that's my artist name. And you know who it is. There you go. I've been working this boot camp shift, and I made a livable wage. There you go. And save. Right, and now that's in. Here we go. Kind of get the idea? Cool. You do whatever you want. This data persists. What happened if I shut this down? Right? I'm going to go ahead, kind of, where'd we go? Right here, crush my node server. Right? I go refresh this. Oh no. KanyeLyrics.com is down. Oh no. I go and restart the server. Wham! You know who it is, right? Like, there we go. It's saved. Right, and we've essentially fixed that problem that we had this morning, which is you're on the beach, you want those reports, but you don't want to lose the data, right? Cool. You can do anything. If you want, what I recommend doing, maybe take a little bit of time. See if you can implement the deletion, right? Making a thing be deleted. Right? See if you can implement something like, I've left little stubs here. When you create a new song, what should happen, right? I'm always accepting pull requests to my repos, so feel free to make edits and make pull requests. Can you hit what? Can you hit a freestyle? Yeah. Yo, my name is Nima, and I'm here to say, I don't know. I'm passing it over to Jenny. No, okay. No? Oh, you just missed Jenny's awesome freestyle. Busted out some seriously thought-provoking stuff. No, I've memorized like most of Wu-Tang Clan. Like honestly, most of like the 36 chambers. It's just not the kind of thing that people want to hear from me. So yeah. Yeah, anyways, question? Right. So the question here is, what if we want to take the Kanye songs from the songs collection and put it inside of Kanye? Absolutely. You can grab it and insert it into Kanye. Mongo has no structure to it that you have forced by, so you can just take stuff and stick it anywhere. Again, think of it as a JSON object. You can do anything with it, or rather many JSON objects. So by extension, the question here is, can you have a link in one item of a collection that points to like another set of items and collections? The answer to that is yes, but sort of. The way that I'm doing it here, for example, the way that I've done it is every artist, if I go into Mongo and I go db.artists, every artist, okay, not Nima, but name Kanye West. Did I delete Kanye? Oh no, because I have to go use hip hop. Okay, so I've made it so that every artist has a Genius ID. So you can use the Genius ID then to hop. Right? You can do that. It's sort of beyond the scope here of this lecture. Like one way you can do it is just get the Genius ID, put it in a variable, and then make a second query. But there are ways for you to like hop with one query. I kind of want you to explore that. That's a really good question though, and that's something that you're going to explore a lot next week in those other kinds of databases that make these queries easier to do. That linked stuff. Right? Mongo is for us right now just a place where you dump a bunch of data. Cool. Assuming no more questions from Calgary, because the hand hasn't waved in a little while other than the freestyle. No questions here. Have a great rest of the day. Notes will be sent out really soon. And if you do have any questions about either the notes or the demo, like trying to run it, please let me know and I'll help you out with it. Cool. Thanks, everyone.